Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. David Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. David is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Yo, David. Hello.
Hello, Kyle.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Yes, well, welcome everyone to episode 157, and we're so excited to welcome back Kyle Jones.
And it seems like you were just here.
I know. Time just totally flies by. It's like magic.
Yeah, we're on like Harry Potter land.
Well, this podcast audience is 60% general public, 40% therapists. And yet I think this is a topic that both audiences might have a lot of interest in. It's certainly a topic that I'm tremendously interested in. And that topic is, Kyle will now explain.
Training. Getting some training to do team CBT, to do team.
Well, tell us what that's been like, and tell us what your thoughts are about that. I know you've wanted to do a podcast on this, and I'm really excited about the topic.
I think I was excited to do a podcast on this topic because I'm in my graduate clinical training, right? I think, well, I guess I should say I'm a clinical psychology PhD student at Palo Alto University in my 5th year at the time of this recording.
So you're all but dissertation?
I've got to finish my dissertation. It's proposed and I'm working on the project, and then I've got to do my one final internship, right? And then they confer the degree and all that good stuff. Then you got to get licensed, but that's a whole nother thing. But what I wanted to talk about specifically was kind of how really just great it's been to have gotten some team training with David and Rhonda and everyone else in the Tuesday group, Jill and Danielle, and then everyone at the Feeling Good Institute, Angela and Maor, and because it's just been such a blessing to do, to get that kind of training.
I know, you've been trained with the superstars of team.
Well, I think also I joined David's Tuesday group before I even saw my first patient, before I was even across from a patient in the first training clinic I was ever at. And it was just so great to have such great training.
Well, Kyle, how did you find out about the Tuesday group and team training and David Burns?
It was so interesting. I think I still have the emails from David. I was working at this intensive outpatient program in Santa Barbara called Recovery Road Medical Center, and they loved your book. Oh. They gave out the Feeling Good handbook to every patient.
Oh, cool!
And they used they had the toolkit, and they used a lot of your methods. I think probably before you had dubbed it TEAM, TEAM. And so then I knew I would be in the Bay Area, and I would be in Palo Alto, and so I just decided to look you up, and I saw on your website that you had your training group, and I emailed David, and he said, "Sure, come check it out." And that was it.
But that was kind of bold of you to email David.
Well, I think I was very deferential, and I said, "Oh, dear Dr. Burns, I'm..."
You're great, Dr. Burns.
You're all great, mighty, powerful Dr. Burns. Could I please join your group?
Well, tell us some of the highlights of your training. What's worked for you, and you might have seen some training that perhaps wasn't so good. I know when I was. I had two kinds of training. One, I started at Highland Hospital in Oakland for the first 2 years, and they didn't have many faculty at all because it's a community mental health, county hospital. We had hundreds of the most severe individuals with the most severe schizophrenia you can imagine. But it was mainly psychopharm, and then just try to form a relationship. We weren't taught a lot about psychotherapy, although compassion was clearly often won the day a little bit here or there. And then I went back to Penn to complete my residency, and it was I was on a depression research unit, so there was a lot of psychopharmacology, but not a lot of training. And I remember I was once asked to lead a group for the veterans, and because I guess the regular therapist was sick or something.
Sure.
And I said,
You
well,
just step in.
how do you do? How do you do in a group? And they said, oh, you don't have to do anything. You just sit there and they'll complain for about an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh.
And that's exactly what happened. And then, you know, I had psychoanalysts training me 1 year.
Oh wow.
And for my, you know, outpatients, and they would just say, tell me more, just to say that to your patients.
Did they face you, or did they look away from you on the couch?
No, it was face to face.
Okay.
It wasn't like that, but they were the head of they were the two psychoanalytic societies in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And I think I had the president of both of them.
Wow.
But
As your patients?
as my
As your
supervisors.
trainers?
Mentors.
Oh, sorry.
But they
spacing
needed
out.
treatment. I shouldn't say that, but there was never any instruction in anything that would help the patients. It was just kind of tell them to express their feelings, and I never like learned anything. And then when I finally, in my postdoctoral, I got into Beck's weekly seminar, and then there were real techniques to learn. That was exciting to me. But
I think for me, it's been a little bit of the opposite, right? It's been a lot of like, oh, here, try this. There's this manual, or there's this school of therapy, and you learn about this, and these are all these, what you'd call M equals methods for, you know, how to kind of fix or problem solve or get patients to do X, Y, or Z to kind of cure them of whatever is not cure them.
Right.
The psychology rarely uses that language, but you know, to help them, right? But there was
selling things to the patient.
Yeah, right.
Well, to help them manage their symptoms, not to be cured of them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But the I guess the point I'm trying to make is the which is something that you have both talked about on your podcast many times, but the paradoxical agenda setting element is just so missing from any other training experience I've had. And I think, you know, I have had other training experiences where I got to learn some ACT therapy or some DBT therapy or some functional analytic psychotherapy or motivational interviewing or something. And because I started with you in the Tuesday group, you know, you've always said team is not a new school of therapy. It's a way of doing therapy.
Right.
So it was easy for me to translate all those different kind of methods and get them to fit into the framework of how to do therapy that I learned from you and everyone else in the Tuesday group. And then it kind of just, it's like I've got an extra, you know, kind of addition to my methods pot.
You've got antibiotics and no one else has them. Right?
Yeah. You know, while always keeping in mind the, you know, tenets of outcome resistance and process resistance, and then wanting to, you know, monitor your patient's scores on the testing forms, and always having good empathy with your patients. I think the testing and empathy is also just amazing, especially the evaluation of therapy session rating scale. No one has ever had anything like that.
Is that right?
In any of the other training sites I've been at.
Let's tell the listeners what we're talking about, because we know, but they may not know. Let's start with what you just said about the empathy scales and helpfulness scales, the evaluation of therapy session that the patient takes after every session in the waiting room, leaves it for the therapist, so the therapist can look at that and find out how the patient felt about you. And that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, I don't know how many items on there, but there's the empathy scale, right? The helpfulness scale, any feelings of discomfort you had, how much you're likely to do homework, things like that. And you get this rich information about what it was like for the patient to be in that session with you.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean,
right, because they also, there's a space where you can write what you liked best and what you like least about the session. So if it doesn't fit into the scale, they can write to you what more detail, which is super great.
Yeah, and your own perceptions will be so different. I mean, that's it is just huge. I was recently treating someone earlier I would say about a week ago, less than a week ago, and I gave this fellow a free 2-hour session, and I think he thought he wasn't good enough, and I was pretty terrific, as I typically am.
You're just immaculate.
And then he sent me as an email the empathy scores, and I had like the lowest I've had in 30 years.
Oh my goodness!
In empathy, like it wasn't failing; it was like well below severe failure. It was like horrific failure, and it was I had a kind of a restless night. It's hard to sleep. It was shocking how poorly I'd done, but I've always had this philosophy that your worst failure is your greatest success in disguise, and kind of stick with it. And then I emailed him the next morning and said, maybe it disturbed me that I did so poorly, but this could lead to a real breakthrough in our relationship. And I was just trying to think, because during the session I'd used all of my 5 secrets as good as I could, but he kept saying I need to cry, and you're not saying the right words to make me cry, and it's like I was under this tremendous pressure and type of thing.
I'm not crying yet, David. I want tears first.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make fun of it because people want to emote and have that cathartic thing. But then the next morning I just wrote back to him and said, I'm just, it's really sad for you, and it's disturbing to me to see how much I screwed up there. And
you were missing what he was feeling.
Yeah, tell me what I was missing, and what was the feeling. And I said, because I got how lonely he was, how depressed he was, how, all this stuff. But then he says, you did tune into just how inadequate I feel. Mm-hmm. And then we began talking about that and a lot of other things. And all of a sudden it just turned around. And he says, gee, I'm drifting into enlightenment. And, now we've been exchanging really tremendous emails pretty much on a daily basis. And, there's still more work to be done. But the therapeutic relationship is just golden now. I still fail all the time.
Yeah.
With him, but it's good actually, because then we talk about how angry he is with me and how ashamed he is of being angry with me, and these are just like things he's never had a chance to talk about before, that he's hiding all the time from people.
Yeah.
And so he's been very courageous, and it's just allowed us to develop a beautiful relationship. But it was scary for me as a therapist and painful, and I think and yet something great came out of that failure. And I just think that so many therapists are afraid to use these ratings. You say it wasn't used anywhere, and you're in one of the most up-to-date training programs in the world. Right. And I just think it really, I mean, I'm over the top on things. I just think it's an ethics violation not to be using these scales in therapy.
Right, because at the end of that session that you're describing, you were like, woohoo, I did a great job, I'm sure that guy's feeling great, and you would never have known that he was feeling so bad.
It wasn't exactly like that. I thought, well, that wasn't the greatest, but I didn't know just how horrible it was until I got the ratings. But I've had ones where I thought it was great, and then it was terrible.
Yeah.
And then you talk it over with the patient. You can almost always turn it around. Patients appreciate humility,
and I think there's something you said that I wanted to point out or jump on a little bit, was about the willingness to fail and how great failure is.
Yeah.
And I think that's been one of the most poignant benefits of the team training in my mind, and is that kind of flipping the script on failure.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it kind of makes the fear go away of failure, right?
Right.
Like, if I fail, that's okay. I'll just kind of fall back on what I already know how to do, which is to use the 5 secrets and empathize and connect with someone. And it's okay if I make a mistake, and then I can kind of course correct because I've gotten feedback.
A safety net to catch it at the end of the session. The patient knows you're going to read it and get back to them, and it just transforms
and adjust your work with
therapy.
them so that meets their needs better.
Yeah. See, I think that all therapists should be required to use these scales. I predict within 10 years, they probably won't choose mine because I'm often overlooked, I'm afraid, for whatever reason. But I think it'll be required by licensing agencies. You've got to be measuring symptoms at the start and end of every session. You've got to get feedback from your patients. And what it would be fantastic, I've been talking with my son Eric about an app for this, to where therapists could actually have your ratings published.
Oh,
and then
like your handicap in golf or something.
Yeah,
in a HIPAA compliant way, just between you and the patient.
What?
In a HIPAA compliant way, it's just published between you and the patient.
You'd have to have the permission and all of that, but it would be anonymous. I mean, if you say you wanted treatment for anxiety, then you could go and see exactly. Because see, we can develop regression equations once we have all this data, and so we can calculate. Say if we have in our database 10,000 therapists, we can put them all into an equation, a regression equation, and everyone can have their effectiveness calculated out to 10 decimal points if you want. How effective is this person in the treatment of marital problems, anxiety, depression, panic attacks? And so then you could go online, just like ratings of restaurants, and choose a therapist who's really getting great results in the exact problem that you have, rather than this mumbo jumbo that we have today, where you go
on blind dates, basically.
Yeah, and you don't even get a picture of the person you're on a blind date with. It's just totally blind date. But tell us more about your training. I love what you're saying.
I think the other point when I was thinking about this podcast that I wanted to make, which is such a simple first step as far as team goes, moving from the empathy phase to the agenda setting phase, is the invitation. It's such a simple thing, right? Are you ready to get to work now, or would you like to talk some more and keep getting some support and have me listen?
It's really a powerful part.
It's kind of mind-blowing how powerful it is, right? Because I was never taught, when do you actually start? At what point do you actually, okay.
When do you start doing therapy and stop endless bullshitting? I'm not supposed to use that word on the podcast, but endless talk.
Yeah, I'll bleep that out. But I mean, let's just assume I had no team training whatsoever. I would be confused about when to start implementing all these other types of techniques or things that I've learned from school and other training sites. But with the invitation, it's just such a clear departure from, okay, now we're getting to work. Yeah. Right? Or maybe we're not. Maybe we're still in this empathy phase. Yeah. I think if every therapist learned how to do an invitation, at the very least, it would just be so awesome and amazing.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little story about that. I had a student that was supervising, a brilliant woman, and she was, for a while, the Stanford had an addiction treatment piece there in the behavioral sciences building, and she was working in that area, as I recall, pretty sure. And she was a postdoctoral fellow in psychology, so she was an NIMH type person, so she was real high power and really sweet too. And I was trying to teach her the invitation step. After you've been empathizing for a while, you say to the patient, now, is there something you want help with, or today, or did you need more time to talk and get support, because that's important too. And she kept not doing it for about 6 or 8 weeks, and yet she liked me. She wasn't, being ornery or anything.
You mean she'd never accepted your invitation?
No, she was my student.
She was your student.
I was teaching her.
So with her patients, she never offered an invitation.
Right. She couldn't seem to do this, but she probably had 180 IQ. She's one of these super smart, kind of like you. And but really,
Kyle.
super smart and kind and gentle at the same time. A really wonderful woman, but she would not do this. And she'd say, I forgot, or whatever. And she was having 20 or 30 patients a week.
Wow.
And she hadn't even, done it once in 7 weeks.
Yeah. And
then I said, why aren't you doing it? And she says, well, to tell you the truth, I know it's incredibly important, but I'm afraid if I give the invitation step and ask them if they want help with something, they'll say yes.
Oh.
And then I won't
She won't be
know.
able to help them or something.
Yeah, I won't know how to help them. And she says, I know as long as I just keep, empathizing and BSing with them, nothing will change, but they'll think it's good therapy type of thing. And so then we
Wow.
talk that over and about, well, suppose they ask for something you don't know how to help them with, what would you do? And she says, I guess I could tell them I'll get a consult from my supervisor this week. And I said, exactly.
that's
So then she
great.
started using the invitation step, and it really transformed her clinical work. But there are these little things that seem so obvious to us, and I guess my point is that there's intense resistance of therapists around the United States. At least those are the only ones in Canada that I really know who aren't doing these things that make a world of difference.
Well, I think that's the point, though, right? Is that they do seem totally obvious to us.
Yeah.
But I think outside looking in, it's not obvious.
Well, I have another
Exactly.
story.
Even though it kind of should be,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Well, I have another story about invitation. Is that, well, I hate to say this because I don't want you to get mad at me, but I always thought the invitation was kind of dumb. Because
Yeah.
I thought, well, the patient is
A lot of
there.
people think I'm kind of dumb.
Well, I mean, they're coming to your office. Of
Hundreds of thousands of them.
a patient is coming to your office, and of course they want help. So why would you ask them if they need help? It just felt really redundant.
Exactly.
And then when I took my level 3 exam, because I had forgotten about the invitation because I'd never done it, I didn't do the invitation to my exam. I failed the exam. And then I thought,
This is the team CBT
the team
certification.
right? So level
yeah.
3, it's an oral exam, and I failed it
Like by a dentist, you mean?
Yeah, a dentist is part of it. But then after I failed it, I thought, okay, I am going to learn invitation. And I just issued invitations in the beginning, in the middle. I was doing it repetitively. And it was I was shocked at how it changed the way the sessions went.
Yeah.
It was really powerful and really important. And I was kind of embarrassed that I thought it was dumb because it's such a, it's empowering to the patient to say, yeah, I'm ready. Or no, I need some more support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever, and I don't want to put any of your supervisors in a bad light, but did you ever have at any really stupid training? From me, I'm sure, but from some of the others, other than me. Like once, one of my supervisors, I was saying that this patient is getting so angry with me all the time and says I'm not helping him, and then I do what you've told me to. I wiggle my hands, and then he starts saying, you're not helping with me with my depression or my marriage. You just nod your head and wiggle your hands. What should I say to him? And so the analyst said, well, ask him if you remind him of his father.
Oh my gosh.
So the next session, the patient was chewing me out for not helping him, and he was kind of crying and kind of angry. And I said, do I remind you of your father?
Oh, jeez.
And he says, not particularly, asshole.
You just suck.
You're just ineffective.
I've actually been very lucky. I've had supervisors that I've gotten along well with, and that I've learned some cool things from.
Yeah.
And I think I had this mindset of kind of wanting to know what they had to offer or had to teach.
And they all have some gems.
Exactly. And I didn't have any experiences, luckily, like that. However, I will say some of my peers have had experiences with supervisors where they kind of have conflict, or they kind of butt heads with the supervisor, or they're kind of afraid of the supervisor or something like that. And I've never had that experience. And when I have kind of felt that power dynamic in the supervision, supervisee role, I just fall back to the kind of disarming technique and some of the 5 secrets and flattery type of skills.
Right.
And not that I'm intentionally trying to BS somebody, but I kind of put myself in their shoes and do some stroking and say, oh yeah, that's actually a great idea. I'll give that a shot. I love what you're saying, and I think that's totally worth trying. And you picked up on that point in the therapy, and that's totally smart. And I'd love to give that a shot, and then all of a sudden the situation is diffused. So that's even been a helpful element of the training, not in the therapist-patient role, but in the supervisor-supervisee
Right.
dynamic too. I don't know, does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does. And then another thing that we're stressing in the Tuesday group is personal work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that I don't think you can really do great therapy, much less even, very good therapy, unless you've done your own personal work and dealt with your own insecurities and feelings of self-doubt. And have you had the chances to do that as well?
Oh yeah, I've had the chance to do personal work with you on a hike and a few times, and in the Tuesday group once, and then at Feeling Good Institute, where I'm at as a trainee there, part of the Lower Feet Clinic, they have a consultation group.
Yeah.
That's offered, you can get some help with a case or do some personal work.
Yeah.
And I've got some great personal help there.
Terrific.
Specifically with procrastination.
Yeah.
I was procrastinating my dissertation.
Yeah.
And I got some just great, amazing help in the consultation group at FGI. And then it's just like you're saying, that now that I've gone through it myself and then I work on it, when someone else comes to me with a similar problem, it's like I have a deeper level of understanding of what they're going through and what their resistance might be. Yeah,
that's right.
And
they pick up on your excitement.
Yeah.
I've said so many times, I've had so many anxiety disorders myself. So when I get someone who's anxious, I say, "Oh, I'm so excited! I'm just going to show you how to crush it." This is going to be a fantastic journey for us, and that really puts the whole therapy on a different level for the patient.
Yeah, because it's like you're the therapist and you're being kind of genuine, right? That kind of wall is down about what's, some professionalism or something kind of falls away, and you're like, oh, hey, I've struggled with this, and I know just what to do, and we're going to tune you right up, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, what a great thing. Anything else you want to mention about your training experiences over the past 4 years?
Just that it's kind of one of those things where I've been super lucky, to have, your Tuesday group to go to and training at FGI to go to, and I've actually got to start to do some teaching too in your Tuesday night group.
I've loved seeing your teaching skills blossom incredibly.
And that's just another great way to help improve your own skills, I think, or it's been true for me.
Yeah, it's been true for me too, 100%.
It's been true for me too. Yeah. I've learned more as a teacher than I ever did as a student, although I learned quite a bit from Beck as a student, but in teaching people, that's how team has evolved. Like when I teach people, I start learning new things while I'm teaching. It's like magic or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the feedback process that's built into doing therapy, right, is also built into doing some teaching.
Yeah, we get feedback from the students. And
right.
I got busted last Tuesday by someone, and I just sent her the third email to give me feedback. What was it that turned you off? Because we did live work. She was in my group, and this woman had a miraculous transformation. She said she went from hell to heaven that night, and there was all kinds of laughter and tears, and it was like magic. And then I got busted in her ratings, and she's seems to be refusing to tell me what turned her off. I'm sure she probably sees me as some dangerous ogre, but it's important. I'm going to get that feedback and find out what it was that she didn't like about it, because that's learning for me.
Right, and it's so courageous too. I mean, at some level, all team therapists have a level of courage to hear all of these things that could be painful. And
it's hard. It's hard for me because I screw up all the time, and when people point it out to you, it's kind of embarrassing or shameful. Now, we got to bring this to a close. One thing we've been talking about, the Tuesday group, and people listening may not be aware of it, but this is a training group we have at Stanford, Tuesday nights from 5 to 7:30, and it's for actually Bay Area and Northern California therapists. It's not just for Stanford people. Any therapist can come, and it's completely free.
Right, and there are people who drive a couple hours to get to it.
Oh yeah, from Central Valley, yeah. And So you can get unlimited free therapy for yourself as a therapist, because through the personal work in the group, and unlimited free training.
But I think it's important because not everybody lives in the Bay Area or California, and there are people who listen to this podcast all over the world. How do they get training?
Well, there's a lot of online. I have workshops coming up. And one thing, if you're interested, I'm going to do a 4-day intensive in Atlanta, Georgia, November 4 to 7th, 2019. And you can go to my website, feelinggood.com, and find the link to this and all my workshops and registration information and details. But those are awesome, the intensives. And also this year, I'm going to be doing a 1-day empathy training workshop with my fabulous colleague, Dr. Jill Levitt. That's on October 6th, 2019, and that's coming up, I think, pretty quick after this podcast will be published. And you can join that one from anywhere in the world online. It's just a 1-day program, and we'll have tons of people supervising the online folks, doing the small group exercises. Kyle will be there teaching you. Probably Rhonda will be there teaching you. And that's going to be a tremendous day. If you're a therapist, the tools you learn that day can change your practice to help you connect with the difficult, challenging, angry, resistant clients, and it can also help you with your personal life as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say something about the 4-day intensives. Because people are coming from Mexico. People came from Mexico City to the San Francisco intensive. People come from all over.
Yeah.
They've come from China, and these 4 days are life-changing, both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
You see from the master what it's David, who created the team model. He describes
the great master.
The great master. He does didactic information. He demonstrates what he's talking about, and then everyone has time to practice what they're learning. Yeah. So it's definitely hands-on, and it's 100%, 1,000,000% worth the effort.
Yeah, and we're going to do personal work too. I mean, I guarantee that of the people coming to the workshop, I will bring at least 70% of you into a state of blistering euphoria and enlightenment during the workshop.
That was my experience. Have you taken it, Kyle?
Yeah.
What was your experience?
It was great. It was really actually amazing. And you do a live demo too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Monday, the first night we'll do a live demo, and then people can be doing a solo flight the third night, and can be doing personal work and downward arrow. It'll be great. So if you can join us at one of those two, that would be great. And thank you again.
Can I make 2 last points?
Yes,
is that
sure
allowed?
Can. Yeah.
I think something I wanted to mention is all this training you do. You can get certified, right?
Yeah.
Through the Feeling Good Institute. And I think that's a good way to kind of build community and stay connected.
Oh, yeah.
And keep on top of your training, which is kind of awesome, I think. And then the other point I wanted to make is that, to me, it's kind of been like something I need to continue to do repetitively over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
To stay sharp and stay on top of my skills.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a practice, like going to church or something.
Yeah, or like learning to play the piano.
Yeah.
You have to work at it, and you get better and better and better over time.
Totally. And it was challenging to learn at first.
Oh, yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of online offerings all year round at thefeelinggoodinstitute.com. You go to their training, and you can join 12-week online introductory classes for team, and all kinds of wonderful stuff. Great, they've got great teachers.
And there are local teachers all over the country. Like Jill Kelly is someone who's teaching a 12-week introductory class in New Orleans.
Oh,
and they're
cool.
There are
New York. There's 2 centers in New York,
and
it's picking up. Well, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Please tell people about our podcast, so our numbers will grow. We're doing, as of today, we're doing like 80,000 downloads a month of these podcasts.
And, that's great.
And we hope it'll continue to build with your support. Tell your friends and
people who think might benefit from listening to it.
Yeah, and if you're a therapist, tell your patients. If you're a patient, tell your therapists. So. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. The theme music is Gypsy Jazz in Paris, 1935, composed and performed by Brett Van Donsel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.